Hello, hello. Welcome to Daily Negativity. Negativity is such a great way to start our day. What an intro. Do you love it? All right, let's get started. Um, so recently, I have been reading about this um, uh, project called Seer. I think it's a great name. Um, and essentially, what it's trying to do is to use prediction markets to uh, um, uh, create it's a little bit more than to try and predict the future. Um, and this is something similar to what I'm working on with the negation game. So I wanted to go kind of like deep into it and see if it made sense to me. So let's say Seer. Seer makes sense. Would work as a. Do I want this to be a efficient price and products? Uh, Well, they don't really say what they're trying to do here, but from what I can tell, what they're trying to do is argue for a. Oh, here it is. However, despite being promising, prediction markets have. Oh, are they just trying to proliferate prediction markets, or are they trying to? Okay, yeah, they're trying to argue for better prediction markets. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think. Okay, here's the point I want to make. Seer will work as a self-governing prediction. A successful. Okay. Survival rate. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, um, implementation of Futarchy. That's really what I'm interested in. And I guess I'll include the link. Let's see here. One of these days, I will even have link support. Until then, what do we do? Should we do this? Pretend like we have link support? That's fine. Okay. I thought I had more. Oh, yeah, I did. This is the worst starting one. Okay, Seer woodwork is a successful implementation of Futarchy. Okay, so I don't think this is true. And let's go and look at it. Don't think that this is true because I need to. So some types. What I'm thinking about is this is something that I see really often in Futarchy projects. Is that let's talk about what Futarchy is. So Futarchy is the form of government proposed by Robin Hanson, in which elected officials define measures of national well-being, and prediction markets are used to determine which policies are most likely to have a positive effect. And for the most part, you run into problems. Well, I mean, you can even see it here. Robin Hanson says that you should vote your values, but you should bet beliefs. The problem is that there's no way to enforce this. Of course, you could potentially enforce this if you had some all-wise sage or trusted counsel that could be relied upon to separate out things that were epistemic questions versus things that were value questions. But that ends up being just about as hard of a question to answer as many of the other questions that you need to answer using prediction markets. And so this is the core issue at the heart of the Futarchy approach. And I really like Futarchy. I really like some of the attributes of prediction markets. I worry a little bit about the regulatory capture that can happen as a result of Futarchy. I worry a little bit about the well, let me show you an example of the regulatory capture. So let's say that there is a market that says something like the market says anthropogenic. Am I going to learn how to spell anthropogenic? I'm going to learn that right now. I spelled it right. Climate change will cost us, let's say, greater than 300 billion. Okay. There's a better way to phrase this, but you get the point. And now let's make our graph of like how likely people think that this is. Okay, so it's like all over the place. And now let's say that suddenly um, a organization. Let's call them uh, uh, Chevron P, just to keep it anonymous. I don't want you to know who they are. Um, they they start paying attention to this market all of a sudden because it turns out that regulators are going to start to. They've decided that they're going to implement Futarchy, and the way that the Futarchy is going to work is that as people, whatever the expected probability of this being true is, as measured by the yes versus no shares that are out there, uh, that is going to be the that's going to determine, um, you know, let's say some policy, and the policy matters here, but I'm just going to choose something really simple. So if it's greater than 50%, there will be a tax on gas. Okay. So if it's above this line, then there will be a new gas tax that's implemented. And you might say, so far, you can see that it's way up here, and now what we want to imagine is the total earnings from Chevron P, uh, you know, not BP and not Chevron, right? I wouldn't want you to get confused. This is just a totally made up company. The total earnings in two cases. So let's say in the yes case and in the no case. So in the yes case, what's the total earnings by Chevron? Let's say that their total earnings is going to be. We're going to make it simple. It's going to be 1 billion. And in the I'm sorry, yeah, okay, this is fine. And in the no case, let's say it's going to be $2 billion. And by earnings, whatever, let's just say that this is uh, pure profit. So this is their profit. In the yes case, they make half as much as what they're going to make. In the no case, right? Of course, if you implement a gas tax, then it's going to reduce the amount of earnings. And so what this means is that the delta between these two, the $1 billion delta between these two, is the amount of money that they can spend in order to manipulate this market. And of course, there's lots and lots of mechanisms by which you could manipulate this. But this is where me and Robin lock horns, because I believe that it's possible to manipulate markets due to this mechanism, and he doesn't believe that it's possible. And I don't exactly know how to resolve our epistemic differences, because it seems really evident to me that Chevron just has a systematic advantage compared to these people. And this includes the fact that this $1 billion doesn't even directly need to go to pushing this price down. So that's one thing that they could do, right? Is they could buy a whole bunch of no shares. Another thing that they can do is they can spend some fraction of that billion on disinformation campaigns. And, it's like, and we know that information campaigns work for changing people's minds. And whether or not they work on people who are somewhat sophisticated is a different question. But you also can just point out that there are going to be like you could imagine Chevron pushing this price down for at least a while. And it's not just Chevron, right? You have an entire industry that would, with billions and billions of dollars to spend on keeping this number nice and low. So this is the concern that I have with futarchic policy systems. And I don't really know how to so I'd like to find out that I'm wrong about this. So let us so how do we find out that we're wrong about um, about Futarchy here? And maybe that will help me think about seer. So some types of I kind of want to make a different point here, which is that Futarchy would be a successful governance approach to governance. Does this not refresh anymore? So this would be so the counterpoint here would be organizations that that profit from certain policies use that expected profit to manipulate the policy markets. That's the point. Okay. So organizations that profit from certain policies could use that expected profit to manipulate policy markets. Right. Someone could say that this doesn't matter because, but the person who would profit from the alternative policy would have an incentive to counteract with their own manipulation, their own bets. Called manipulation, it sounds bad. The organizations who would profit from the policy would have to counteract influence their own bets. Let's call it competing organizations profit from policy, which means that what does it mean? It means that organizations that profit from certain policies could use that expected profit to manipulate the policy markets. Competing organizations who would profit from an alternative policy would have an incentive to counteract the influence with their own bets, which means that it's not a concern if organizations influence policy market with their own, if the personal incentives of organizations influence the policy market of the policy market. Okay. So then organizations that profit from certain policies could use that expected profit to manipulate policy markets. Competing organizations who would profit from an alternative policy with their own bets, which means there's not a concern if the personal incentives of the organization influence the outcome of the policy market. But I think that this is not true because not all alternative policies are profitable for some group. Let's say, like, what's a policy that is like strictly, so like we could have a soot emitting factory near a residential development. Okay. The residential development would prefer not to have the soot emitting factory, but they don't profit from removing it, preventing it. But they don't financially profit from by preventing it. Okay, so then you could say that this is irrelevant because soda manufacturing near a residential development you could say if they prefer not to have soot in the air, they should be willing to pay to remove it. Now, there's another argument that says that this is irrelevant. Yeah. So, okay, that's fine, I guess. And then you could also make some point that says it doesn't matter. There's some linkage here that's missing because Futarchy would. There's also an argument that says that this isn't Futarchy, right? Because Futarchy is your values are supposed to be somehow separated from your beliefs, but we kind of just proved, in some sense, we proved that that's not possible. So let's make that argument. It's impossible to affect Futarchy to vote on values and bet on beliefs, but it's impossible to separate values and beliefs in someone's separate issues into purely into buckets of value issues, pure value issues, and pure belief issues. Values and beliefs intrinsically intrinsically find. Okay, how do you spell intrinsically? It's like two L's. And an A. Futarchy says to vote on values and bet on beliefs. However, impossible to separate issues into buckets of pure value issues and pure belief issues. Values and beliefs are intrinsically entwined. I think that is a good point. I might think that that is true. Okay, we're definitely out of time here, but that was fun. Futarchy is something that I think about a lot. I don't exactly know. Sometimes when I'm engaging with Robin Hanson on it, I can't tell if he's just stubborn or if I'm wrong. And so this is my attempt to be wrong. And doubtless there's more things to say. I think it's kind of it's a difficult thing for me to think really coherently about. And so I'll probably be returning to that. And then once I return to that, maybe I'll be able to link it up into this broader question around whether or not SEER is an implementation of a successful futarchic system. And to be clear, I don't know if SEER is necessarily trying to be a futarchic system. I think it is. I think it just lists that as one type of possibility. But you can see here that it imagines governance being something that could work with with SEER. So okay, cool. Thanks so much for coming along for the ride. Take care. Bye.